Welcome back to Menopause Barbie. That's me. You're joining me right smack dab in the middle of a tutorial on the SERMs. Don't know what a SERM is? Well, go back and watch the previous tutorial and you'll get all caught up. You gotta watch these things in order, remember? In that tutorial, I explained the general concept behind the SERMs, and in this tutorial, I'm going to present you with the actual SERM products. So, why should you even care about the SERMs? I mean, why should you watch this video? Well, the answer is because even if you don't need to know about these products now, your situation could change. And you know, my goal is to prepare you in advance for whatever might come your way. This is about knowledge. Knowledge is power, and being able to apply that knowledge is empowerment. And that's what these tutorials are all about. I'm here to help you manage your menopause your way. So I'm empowering you to have knowledge that you can use to suit your needs, whatever they are, and however they change. So I just don't think there should be any more suppression about menopause. You know, together, we're going to take control of this topic and take control of ourselves. So that's why you need to know about the SERMs, because they constitute a broad category of your options. So this is tutorial number 35. And in the book, it's pages 131 until 134. And in your outline notes, it's pages 30 and 31. Okay, so let's get started. Today I'm going to give you a little review and then I'll present each one of the SERMs one at a time, giving you all the details about each of them. Okay, so let's review. SERM, that's S-E-R-M, and it's an acronym for Selective Estrogen Receptor Modulators. Now, SERMs are synthetic, non-hormonal products that, you know, they're essentially estrogen imposters. I mean, you know, normally you don't like an imposter, but, you know, I mean, it's like you have the real Barbie doll and then you have a fake Barbie doll, an imposter. So even though you don't normally like imposters, I think you might like some of these. So these SERMs produce some of the same effects that estrogen produces, but not all. You see, in general, they're going to produce the beneficial effects of estrogen and not the risky ones. So SERMs are selective because they act on certain parts of your body. They act on your bones, they act on your breast, they act on your heart arteries, and they act on your uterus. But they can act on each of those places in one of three ways. They can act on any one of them in a friendly way, an unfriendly way, or a neutral way. So they're friendly if they decrease your risk for a cancer or decrease your risk for a heart attack. And we denote friendliness with a plus sign or positive. They're unfriendly if they increase your risk for a cancer or for a heart attack. And we denote unfriendliness with a negative or a minus sign. And they're neutral if they neither decrease nor increase your risk for a cancer or a heart attack. And we denote neutrality with a 0. Pretty simple, right? Plus, minus, or 0. Means friendly, unfriendly, or neutral. So now you're ready to meet the SERMs. So now we're going to talk about each of the SERM products in general and in detail. So the first SERM is a product called Tamoxifen. It's also known as Nolvadex. This is Tamoxifen. Now, you might have heard of Tamoxifen before, and the reason you might have heard about it is because it's a chemotherapy agent that's used to treat breast cancer. But that's not the only thing we use it for. Tamoxifen, in addition to treating breast cancer, can help prevent breast cancer. So it's extremely friendly to your breast, and that's especially true in the first 5 years of using it. But tamoxifen is also great for preventing osteoporosis. So that means it's very friendly to your bones. And It even helps prevent heart attacks, so it's friendly to your heart. You see how this works? Now, you know that making choices is all about weighing your benefits and your risks, right? And no drug is ever going to be perfect in every way. So tamoxifen has some undesirable characteristics also. The most significant risk for tamoxifen is that it is not friendly to your uterus. It increases your risk of uterine cancer, if you still have your uterus. Of course, if you've had a hysterectomy, you don't have to worry about the risk of uterine cancer, right? But if you still have your uterus, you need to be aware of the fact that tamoxifen increases the thickness of the lining in your uterus, and that leads to uterine cancer. Now, if you still have your uterus, it doesn't mean you can't use tamoxifen. It just means that you have to be more careful about using it. If you have your uterus and you want to use tamoxifen, what you have to do is monitor that lining in your uterus on a regular basis. And the way we monitor the lining in the uterus is we do ultrasounds to look at the lining, and sometimes we do a biopsy to take a sample of the lining to make sure it's normal. Now, there are some other risks of tamoxifen that are minor. One is blood clots. One is visual disturbances, and one is hot flashes. So let's say you're already at high risk of blood clots. Well, tamoxifen might not be a good choice for you. But let's say that you're at high risk for breast cancer, and you want to protect your bones and heart, and you don't have your uterus, you've had a hysterectomy, and you are not at risk for blood clots. Well, this could be the perfect option for you. So you'd have to use something else besides tamoxifen for your hot flashes and menopausal symptoms. So you'd use tamoxifen for some of these benefits and something else for your hot flashes and other symptoms. Tamoxifen's not going to help you with all your symptoms of menopause. So you see how this works, where there are some good things, some bad things, some things that work for you and some things that don't work for you, and there are plenty of women who benefit from tamoxifen. So let me give you a summary of what we know about tamoxifen. With regard to friendliness, it's friendly to your breast, your heart, and your bones. It's not friendly to your uterus. The side effects are blood clots, visual disturbances, and hot flashes. The advantage is that it's breast cancer treatment and prevention. And the disadvantage is that it's an increased risk for uterine cancer. So, are you seeing how this works? So the next drug is raloxifene. Now raloxifene is also known as Evista. That's this drug. Now I have shown you this one before. Do you remember when I used it as an example of a synthetic drug when we were dissecting the difference between the words natural and synthetic? That was tutorial number 22. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. It's very important. So you've seen this drug before, Evista. Now raloxifene has a primary purpose of preventing osteoporosis. That's its main goal in life. It increases your bone density to an extent that is equal to that of estrogen. And for some reason, Evista and raloxifene is more effective at preventing osteoporosis in your hip than it is in your spine. Now that's a good thing if you're more concerned about hip osteoporosis, and it's not as good a thing if you're more concerned about spine osteoporosis. But since raloxifene is not estrogen, and it's not even a hormone, it doesn't have all the same qualities as estrogen. It's friendly to your heart, so it helps prevent heart attacks. And it's neutral toward your breast and your uterus, so it doesn't increase or decrease your risk for breast cancer or uterine cancer. But here's the catch with raloxifene. It has the same tendency to cause blood clots that estrogen has. So that means you would not use estrogen and raloxifene together. You wouldn't be able to use both of them because the risk for blood clots compounds. So if your main concern is avoiding a hip fracture and you aren't at high risk for blood clots, raloxifene could be the best drug for you. So here's your summary of raloxifene. With friendliness, it's friendly to your heart and your bones. It's neutral to your breast and your uterus. The side effects are blood clots. The advantage is that it prevents hip fracture better than spine fracture. The disadvantage is that it prevents hip fracture better than spine fracture. And the other disadvantage is that you can't use it with estrogen. You're already starting to see how these different things have different personalities, and that means that they're right for different people, right? Okay, the next group is a group of drugs called bisphosphonates. Now, there's a variety of bisphosphonates. Here's one called alendronate. Now, alendronate is also known as Fosamax. And what I have here is Fosavance. We have Benosto. We have Fosamax without vitamin D. And we have Fosamax with vitamin D. Okay, so Fosamax has a lot of different brands. Now, a second bisphosphonate is called Actonel. Another word for Actonel, or another name for it, is Risedronate. Okay, so Actonel. And then there's a third. This one is ibandronate sodium, also known as Beniva. So there's a big variety of bisphosphonates. Now, the bisphosphonates, all of them, are specific for preventing osteoporosis. That's it. That's all they do. They focus on your bone only. And they prevent both hip and spine fractures. So there's neither one of those that's the more beneficial. But bisphosphonates have no effect on your uterus, your breast, or your heart. So they're neutral with those things. And the bisphosphonates don't alleviate any of your symptoms of menopause. So the good news with bisphosphonates is that you can take them with estrogen for all the other symptoms of your menopause. So when you think about bisphosphonates, think about bone. They only affect your bone, and only in a positive way. Now, there are some strict usage requirements with bisphosphonates, and what that means is you have to take them a certain way. So here's how you have to take all of these bisphosphonate products. First, you have to take them first thing in the morning when you wake up. You take your pill with a large glass of water, and when you take it, you then have to sit or stand for 30 minutes. And the reason you have to do that is because if you don't, if you lie back down, they can creep up from your stomach into your esophagus and irritate the esophagus. So you have to stay upright for 30 minutes, and you cannot eat anything for 30 minutes. Okay, that's what you have to do. Now, so the drug companies realize that those rules kind of might be a little bit problematic or bothersome or just kind of a big drag. So what do? Well, they develop these drugs with weekly options and some with monthly options. And that way you don't have to follow those rules as often. But here's how it works. If you get to the monthly option where you're only having to do this once a month, you have to lengthen that time frame of sitting or standing and refraining from eating to 60 minutes. So it goes from 30 to 60 minutes. So instead of every day having to wait for 30 minutes before you can eat and having to sit or stand for 30 minutes, you only have to do it once a month for 60 minutes. Now there's one other thing about the bisphosphonates. There's a poorly understood and infrequent complication of all the bisphosphonates of something we call osteonecrosis of the jaw. And the acronym for that is ONJ. Osteonecrosis of the jaw. Now, osteonecrosis of the jaw is death of bone in the jaw after dental surgery, but it's dental surgery that occurs years after using the bisphosphonate. And what it denotes is poor wound healing. Now, it's really rare, so it's not a reason to constitute avoiding the bisphosphonates, but you know, if you have a lot of dental problems and you don't have strong teeth or you have issues with your jaws, maybe you shouldn't use a bisphosphonate. But if you don't have those issues, it wouldn't be a reason to avoid a bisphosphonate. These bisphosphonates are all very popular, and they're especially good if you have primary concerns about osteoporosis, regardless of any of your other issues. So here's your summary sheet of the bisphosphonates. Friendliness, they're friendly to bone. They have no effect on your breast, heart, or uterus. Side effects, they don't relieve your symptoms of menopause and the osteonecrosis of the jaw. Advantages are that they're specific for bone and you can use them with estrogen. And the disadvantage is those rules of usage that you have to follow when you take them. Okay, here's the next thing. This is Tibolone. Now this one's different. Tibolone is different in that unlike all the other SERMs that I've shown you so far, Tibolone is actually a synthetic hormone. But it behaves more like a SERM than it does a hormone. You know, it's like it's got a personality problem. Like all the SERMs you've seen this far, it prevents osteoporosis. It's neutral towards your breast and your uterus, and we really don't know if it has any effect on your heart one way or another. It's just some things we just don't know. Unlike the other SERMs, it also alleviates some of the symptoms of menopause. So you've got a few benefits. Tibolone can get rid of your hot flashes, your night sweats, your vaginal dryness, forgetfulness, and mood swings. So hey, there's a perk. It can do some other things than just take care of bone. But there's a big catch with Tibolone. The big catch is that you can only take it when you're post-menopausal. Remember those videos when I taught you what post-menopausal means? It means that you've gone for at least 12 months with no period. If you're in that transition phase of perimenopause, you cannot take Tibolone. So post-menopausal women only. And the side effect of Tibolone is vaginal bleeding and also breast pain. Now, the vaginal bleeding makes it less popular than some of the other drugs just because mostly postmenopausal women who don't have periods anymore don't want to worry about the possibility of having vaginal bleeding. So you can understand that. That's about it for Tibolone. Here's your summary sheet. Friendliness. It's friendly to your bones, it's neutral to your breast and your uterus, and it's questionable for your heart. Side effects are vaginal bleeding and breast pain. The advantages are that it relieves some of your other symptoms of menopause, and the disadvantage is that it's for postmenopausal use only. Okay, now we have a newer agent. This one is called Ospemifene, also known as Ospemifene. Now this one is unique, and the way it's unique is that it is not indicated for osteoporosis at all. All the others are good for osteoporosis, not Ospemifene. In other words, Ospemifene is neutral with regard to your bones. It has a whole different focus. Ospemifene targets your vagina. It's the only SERM that is specifically used for your vagina. Now, that's a good thing. Ospemifene treats all the vaginal symptoms of menopause, and there's a bunch of them. There's dryness of the vagina, itching of your vagina, pain and tenderness in your vagina, painful intercourse, burning in your vagina, and lack of lubrication in your vagina. And of course, I'll be giving you detailed tutorials on this whole syndrome of vaginal stuff in menopause. But Ospemifene targets all of that. So what about all these other things, the other body parts that I talked about before? Well, Ospemifene can be unfriendly to your uterus and thicken the lining of your uterus. And we don't know how it behaves toward your breast. And it has no effect at all on your bones or your heart. So, you know, it's one of those things where it has a whole different focus and a whole different constellation of benefits and risks, right? And of course, we have to talk about side effects. The side effect of Ospemifene, get this, it can cause hot flashes. Go figure. You know, that's how it goes. You get a cool vagina that's all happy and settled, and you have hot flashes. Hey, trade-offs. But Ospemifene can also cause blood clots or stroke. So here's your summary for Ospemifene. Friendliness, it's very friendly to your vagina, loves your vagina, doesn't like your uterus. It's neutral to your heart and bones, and we don't know about your breast. And the side effects are hot flashes, blood clots, and stroke. The advantage is it's specific for your vaginal symptoms of menopause, and the disadvantage is that there's no protection from osteoporosis. Okay, final drug is a new one called Bazedoxifene. Now this one is a combination drug. It's a combination of SERM plus estrogen. So it's an estrogen imposter along with the real thing. You know, drug companies think of everything. I mean, they think of everything. So this is Bazedoxifene, also known as Duave. Now, this combination drug is like the bisphosphonates in that it's specific for preventing osteoporosis. It has no effect at all on your breast, your heart, or your uterus. But it has another perk. It allows you to skip taking progesterone if you still have your uterus. And that's not the case with estrogen. If you take estrogen, you have to take progesterone. But if you take Bazedoxifene, you don't. And it alleviates your hot flashes and your vaginal dryness. You see, are you starting to see how there are differences in all of these? You know, there's no doubt that there will be more of these drugs in the future. So that's the newest of the bunch for now, but there will be more. So here's the summary on Bazedoxifene. It's friendly to your bones and neutral to everything else. Breast, heart, and uterus, neutral. Side effect? We don't know yet, but possible blood clots. The advantages are that it relieves vaginal dryness, painful intercourse, hot flashes, and you can omit progesterone. And disadvantages? We don't know yet. It's new. You know, I've introduced you now to all of the available SERMs. All of them but Ospemifene are good for preventing osteoporosis. In fact, until Ospemifene came along, we all thought of SERMs as automatically for osteoporosis. So now what you're seeing is they're finding other purposes for some of these drugs. But beyond all that, every single one of them has various pros and cons. And you know, that's just the name of the game. Now, you do not have to remember all these names and you don't have to remember all these differences. What you do have to know is what you want to accomplish. And those are the things you need to list for your doctor. And when you go into your doctor, it'll be much easier to find what's right for you if you have what you're trying to accomplish down, okay? Of course, you know I've made you a little chart. I always make you little charts because I like to summarize things and I like to make it so that you have one sheet with all the differences on it that you can use, or you can even take it into your doctor and say, see this, and you can highlight all the things you care about and you can target what you want. So I have a summary chart for you and it'll simplify your ability to navigate through the differences between these SERMs. Now you can find the summary chart in the descriptive section of this video, or you can find it on my website, which is menopausebarbie.me. It's not in the book or in the outline notes. Okay, so here is your summary chart. What you see is across the top, I've listed each of these SERMs, and along the left side, you see the body parts, you know, bone, breast, heart, uterus, and you see the side effects, the advantages, the disadvantages, and that way you're able to find out what works for you. Aren't you seeing how this vast array of options enables you to find the perfect fit for your circumstances? I mean, isn't this great? You have so many options. You know, in the last 10 tutorials, we have gone through all the foods, all the herbs, all the botanicals, the bioidenticals, the synthetics, and the SERMs that function as estrogens. You have learned a lot about this hormone called estrogen. And you've learned that all these different options differ in their benefits, their risks, their strengths, their efficiencies, the side effects, and even the purposes. And if you've learned nothing else, I hope that you realize that all estrogens are not the same, right? And that's a good thing because, you know, all women are not the same. So this wide variety of estrogen options, from foods all the way to SERMs, benefits our different needs and desires. And I just love when, you know, we have choices and we can change our minds and we can try different things and find the thing that works best for us. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our discussion on estrogens and all the estrogen imposters. And now we're ready to move on to progesterone. So that's what we're going to do in the next tutorial. So take care until I see you then, and I'll say goodbye for now. Bye!